We want to see the party promoting low taxes, flat taxes. We want to see a future of the party which is absolutely libertarian, and that's where we want to go. We don't want to be turned into a porridge like all the other parties, the Tories, the Labour Party, the Liberals, the whole lot of them. They're all the same, and the Scottish Nationalists. Well, you know, we don't want to end up like them, all sitting there like nodding dogs, agreeing with everything. We are radical. Nigel is radical. We are only where we are today because of Nigel Farage and what he's done for the past. We are an independent party and we want to stay that way. That's why Bill's founded Indigo. I think we should have a tune to go with that. Something, I think there was a little combo band called Deep Purple. Maybe one of their little tunes might do well. But I praise Bill for that. I praise Paul Nuttall for keeping the flame going. Let's keep it going.
I actually, in May this year, it's my 20th anniversary of joining UKIP. Believe you me, in the early days, it was... early days it was bloody hard. I mean, in 2001 I got less votes in the general election than that titan of British politics, Dancing Ken Hanks, the official Monster Raving Loony Party. And that shows how far we've come, and actually we're also winning the hearts and minds of the British people, because we saw what was achieved in the European elections year before last when Bill, Jill and I in the West Midlands and many colleagues raided it back, got elected to the European Parliament for the first time. And that really, really shows, and we've built on that. They said, oh, it's a 5 minutes of busted flush, very one-trick pony in the European elections. And then we go and we win 4 million votes at a general election. 4 million votes. Incredible result. And it goes back to the word, the establishment. Because the establishment love the European Union. They're very, very cosy. We see this every week, don't we, Bill, in the European Parliament. But we know the country, and in fact not just this country, but other countries across the 28 member states of the European Union are looking for a new approach. And that is why we have to support initiatives such as this and get away from the branding. Our opponents will look and say, oh, it's right-wing nonsense. Well, it's not. It's not right-wing nonsense. It's libertarian sense. And this whole concept, just like the concept of Britain's membership of the European Union, isn't a right-wing thing, it isn't a left-wing thing. It's a fundamental principle of parliamentary sovereignty and the ability to decide a way forward and have laws that best suit us. And I think we can re-engage with the world, and I think not only taking a step back into the room, we can re-engage with our country. Because our country has been consistently let down really since 1973, when we joined the common market. They've continually buried their heads in the sands like ostriches and pretended that they somehow have control over our destiny. Well, what I want to do is see a return to a sovereign parliament built not just on the great military sacrifices of the 2 world wars, but the social sacrifices, the levellers, the Chartists, the suffragettes. So many different areas where people have struggled and come together to fight for their democratic rights. And we have to show, once we've got our country back from the European Union, that those democratic rights count. And the only way we can do that is having sound, sensible policies and actually discussion. Because we have to not just engage with our party, we have to engage with the country and get them thinking about other options. And do you know what? If we get one policy wrong, we can change it. But of course, with European legislation, once that's wrong, it pretty much can't be changed. So this is about a bright future for Britain. This is what it's about, and this is not about the party being hijacked that I've worked so hard for and lost so many strands of hair over. You know, this is about a way forward. And I really believe, with the diversity of the people, actually, within the Indigo Group, that we can achieve something very, very special. And I know with Bill's work and Paul's work, and Paul Nuttall, who I know is going to say a few words a bit later, we know what the British people want. If we know what they want, why don't we give it to them? And the way we can give it to them is through work such as being done by the Indigo Group. Thanks very much, Bill.
I completely endorse everything that the Indigo Group is trying to achieve, and this is something which has come about as a result of a number of discussions that we've had as MEPs over the past 3 or 4 months. Last week I was on Radio 5 Live and the host said to me, well, Mr Nuttall, win or lose the referendum, what's left for UKIP? You've achieved everything that you were created to do. If you win the referendum, if you lose, well, you may as well pack up and go home. No, no, no. The future of UKIP actually starts now. We are going to make great strides in the second half of this decade. And I genuinely believe our time is now. We have a huge gap on the political spectrum for UKIP to fill. There is no point us rushing to the centre, as some have suggested. The centre is already clustered. Exactly. There are parties there already. There is no point in changing. Stick with the course. People are flocking to our cause. If we move to the centre, we'll lose as many voters and supporters as we will gain, if not more. Yeah. That is the road. And then yesterday, to cap it, Andrew Neil asked me on the Daily Politics, well, you know, UKIP are focusing on the referendum. Why are you bothered about the Assembly elections? Well, the answer's simple. We're not a single issue pressure group. We're a political party. Parties stand in elections and win elections, and we will win seats on assemblies up and down the kingdom on May the 5th. We'll do it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of things which have attracted me to this group. I'm just looking at the outline manifesto here. Migration. We must not water down where we stand on immigration. We were right 10 years ago. When people said, UKIP, you're racist, you're xenophobic, and all the rest of it 10 years ago, we have been proven absolutely right. The other parties have followed in our wake. We must not budge from saying we want an Australian points-based system, whereby if you've got the skills that our country needs, please come here and work. I think we should be bolder on the BBC. The BBC, which is inherently biased. I am fed up of a morning listening to Radio 4, listening to Radio 5, putting on BBC Breakfast and being spoon-fed left-wing drivel. I've had enough of it. I genuinely believe in the free market, and I believe if the BBC is good enough, it will survive in a free market. On education, again, we must strive to have education by ability and not wealth. Every child, whether it's working class or middle class, will have the same opportunities in life. The Sutton report this week proves that. Public schools are dominating this country in a way that we haven't seen since the interwar period, and we all know why that is. It's because social mobility has regressed since the 1970s, and there's only one way. We'll sort that out. We go back to the old system, which wasn't broken really in the first place. Let's go back to academic selection, and let's advocate putting a grammar school in every single town. Next on the list, foreign aid. We must remain strong on foreign aid. We must say it's insane to be spending £25 million every single day on foreign aid and giving it in some cases to countries that are richer than ourselves. China, India, Brazil, the list goes on. And this at a time when 1 million of our own people last year had to go to food banks. This at a time when the Chancellor is talking about more cuts in a couple of weeks in the budget. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the Indigo Group should stand up, be proud, and never be ashamed of saying charity begins at home. Let's put Let's trust in direct democracy. Trust people over politicians. Let's have local referenda. If enough people sign a petition, you put it out and trust the people. I'm looking here at constitutional reform. We must be radical. Let's not water down where we stand on this. We know there's going to be a constitutional crisis in the years to come, whether that's on the House of Lords, and it will come. We must be ready. We must have the answers. And indeed there will be another constitutional crisis, and that will come as a result of Tony Blair's devolution, which left England with nothing. We must be the people who say we want fairness for England, because at the moment we do not have it. We have a democratic deficit within the Union. Let's preserve the Union we love, the one that has given us real peace and prosperity for the past 300 years, but that will only survive if England gets a fair deal. Let's fight against insidious green taxes which are pushing up the price of energy and are harming the poorest in our society. And finally, tackling radical Islam. This is something I'm particularly sure that we must do. Good. We must be the party that protects women's rights. We must be the party that stand up and say the fact that nobody has been sent to prison for female genital mutilation for the past 25 years since it's been illegal is an utter disgrace. We must be the party that is opposed to forced marriage, which is on the increase within these communities. We must be the party that has the bottle to say Sharia law and Sharia courts have no place in we are the ones who must keep the true UKIP flame alive. That's why it's important that we're here today. You know, small acorns, great oak trees will grow, and I guarantee this group will be a growing force within UKIP in the years to come. Thank you very much.
I want to sort of put you into my involvement in this in context, and then talk you through the roles I've had as we've started to develop this group. I think this all came, I think you'll remember this, Bill, probably the back end of May last year. And like everybody in this room, I've never been so depressed in my life. We just scored 4 million votes and had one MP to show from it. And I looked around at the three, well, say main parties, you call Lib Dems a main party, but the three parties plus the SNP. And they were all big state parties to a greater or lesser extent. They all believed that the state has the answer to everything. In fact, it was this misguided belief that a bureaucrat, now whether that's in Westminster or even further away in Brussels, can spend an entrepreneur's money better than the entrepreneur can. I don't think anybody in this room would believe that. So I rang up Bill and had a general whinge and vented my spleen for 10 minutes and basically said, Bill, who out there is giving any hope to people who have aspirations, particularly the working class who want to own their own home, want to start their own business and not have the government interfere, want to take control of their kids' education and get the very, very best they can? Who's doing it? And it's one of those conversations that's very fortuitous, because Bill turned to me and said, well, that's what Paul Brothwood and I have been speaking about, and we know that Paul Nutt was very keen on this. We need to get together. So here I am. And not only have I obviously had input into the policies and been a sounding board back for other inputs, my role has also been to take it out to be a sounding board with the members, because we need to be sure that we're in touch with what our membership wants. So my job has been to take it round to branches in the West Midlands, and I have to say, hand on heart, the feedback has been absolutely fantastic. It really has. I mean, it was quite funny, the only objection I've had was from one of my own branch members in Solihull, who didn't like our policy on the BBC, who thought that the idea of a 1950s style state broadcaster was a good thing, but you can't please everybody. But I'll give you a couple of examples. Stephen Brooks is there. I'll embarrass you, Stephen. He's chair of a Birmingham branch, and a couple of days before I went in to present our policies, he dropped me an email. He said, Phil, just to to let you know, we've got a lot of ex-Labour members who've joined us. You might have a bit of a rough ride. Did I get a rough ride?
No.
Not at all. People who grasp that they want something different and they want us to be radical. Example is that we'll also listen at the same meeting. Keith Rowe, who stood for Police and Crime Commissioner in the West Midlands in the past, came up with a fantastic idea which will help small businesses. And we're looking now to incorporate that into our policy. So it's very much a two-way thing. What I would say is if you like what you hear today, I'm happy to come to other regions and talk you through. If that's what people require, I'm happy to come to branch meetings across the country, because I think this needs to be rolled out. You know, we are different. We need to return to what we're good at. We need to meet the expectations of those who have aspirations to do better. And above all, our group needs to stick to its core principles and say what we mean and mean what we say.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
As well as anyone, you know, you've been in Brussels or something, and you're completely surrounded by all of these statist cretins. And you get there and you think, is it me? Am I the only sane man left in Europe? And then you come to the conference and you go, yeah. It's full of great people, ordinary people, people who just want the best for themselves, for their families and for their country and for the world. Because what we're doing is we're changing the world. Every step we take now is changing the world for the better. We're giving people across the world hope. If we can break the biggest of the supranational mega states, then that gives hope to everyone else in the world who is being transformed into the same things in all the different continents. You know, Britain's leading again. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice to be the leaders, not the followers, not to listen to someone else? You know, come June the 24th, when we wake up with banging heads and Nigel's face on every media channel all the time, and we wake up and we go, we've opened the door. We've opened the door. We've opened the door for ourselves. We've opened the door for the entire world. You know, this is the new revolution, and this is what we are. And what Bill's putting together here is the critical part of it, because it's only the key in the door, the referendum. It's the start. But what Bill's doing, he's helping to build a future for UKIP, so that once we leave, you know, there's no chance of falling into the same old trap of the establishment telling us what we want. We're a part of the people. And what the Indigo Group is about people in the party contributing, making a part of it, you know. But it's, Nigel's the soul of the party, and we're the soul of Britain. And we're the soul of Europe to an extent. Because we say, you know, we love the French, we love the Swedes, we love all of them as they are, as the people they are, as the nations they are. And we want them to stay the same. And the Indigo Group is about forging a future for Britain that our colleagues in other countries in Europe and around the world can look at and say, there's a party and a movement, because we're much more than a political party, we're a movement that actually is bringing things forward, is making people proud to be part of their country, and telling every single person who's born in the country, who lives in the country, you have a part to play.
I'll be very brief. I believe that this party has to carry on after the referendum. Whichever way the referendum goes, let's hope we vote out. But if we don't vote out and we end up staying in, the party becomes even more important. I think the people of Great Britain deserve a third party of outstanding, and we are the third party now. We have 4 million supporters that's already voted for us. I believe that that number will rise significantly after the referendum. We've got a huge swell of support behind us. We've got to build on that.
This group started out, actually we had last year something called UKIP at the conference, a fringe event then, which was on a very similar line. It was thinking about the party as a standalone independent party, not about the EU referendum as such. Thinking about where we head to after the referendum, thinking about what general policies we want, trying to stir up and provoke policy debate within the party so that we can go forward from this point and, as Mike said, take council seats, take Westminster seats, be a force that can really change the overall face of British politics. We've got 4 million votes already. We can do so much more. This is about having a smile on our face, because whatever happens in the referendum, although we're pretty sure we know, don't we, that we're going to win, post-referendum, we need to be there pushing the agenda for real change. I would argue that the purpose of UKIP is to give people freedom.
Yeah.
That's it. Not from the EU or from the state, from anyone who wishes to take freedom from them. To give us more personal freedom, more independence, allow the working class to prosper through their own hard work, not to be given hand-downs all the time, not to be kept in our place, patted on the head, good little boys and girls. That's like the Labour Party. And on the subject of the Labour Party, I just thought I'd throw one in. We talk about how far this party's come. Well, there was a time when UKIP wasn't so well known. And there's a little story that I'll share with you about a UKIP activist who goes out into a place called Sandwell in the West Midlands. Now, Sandwell is pretty largely Labour. I think there's 72 councillors on Sandwell Council, and 71 of them are Labour. One of them's UKIP. Good man, Councillor Philip Garrett. Let's give him a round of applause. But this was before his time, and the UKIP activist went out, and he went to a place in Sandwell. There's some allotments. He went to one of the guys there. He said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I talk to you a little bit about UKIP?" He said, "Never heard of that. I don't know what you're on about." He said, "Do you mind if I gather some of the other people from the allotment round and we can all listen to you?" He said, Yeah, no problem, no problem." Anyway, quite a crowd gathered. And after a while, the chap said, "Look, we can't all see you. Look, can we get you up onto some kind of platform, some kind of podium?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, they're looking around, it's an allotment. The only thing they could find is, well, fertiliser. We might call it dung, I don't know what you might call it in Wales. But they've built up a mound, a large mound of it. And this guy gets up and he gives a rousing UKIP oration. He talks about liberty, freedom, the small state, freeing us from the EU, patriotism. And by the end of it, everyone's absolutely incensed and really delighted with this. And they said, "Well, thank you so much. We've never heard a UKIP speech before." And the UKIP activist said, "Well, thank you. I've never given a UKIP speech from a Labour platform." Those people who voted for us, those people who support us, they come out and leaflet for us, they knock doors for us, and they care passionately that we do well. Don't want us to fit in. They don't fit in. The British public doesn't fit in with the establishment. The establishment has grown almost like a cancer on our country, taking the life from us, right at the top, sucking everything out. And while the people are left thinking, what happened? How did this happen? And the reason why we've grown to where we are, although we are on the right side of the arguments on the EU, it's because people want someone to challenge the establishment. That's what we're here for. We're not here to become part of it. So when you hear people talk about, let's get in the middle of the road, let's try and find a way that everyone thinks we're okay. If you stand in the middle of the road, you get run over. We are the people who've got to, at every point, challenge. But then once we've challenged, once we've smashed down those walls, and believe me, after the referendum, the walls will start falling. Because it's not just about the EU, it's about the whole establishment. They're all intertwined. They're all part of the same problem. Once those walls come down, we then can rebuild. We can offer the people something exciting and new, a different vision, a different way forward. Now this group, we want to go forward from here and to grow and to become part of a driving force within UKIP. Massively loyal to the leadership of the party who've got us to where we are today.
Firstly, there's two people I'd like to thank Mark Littlewood from the Institute of Economic Affairs, who has been exceptionally helpful. And I've got an email. He was supposed to be here today, but he's stuck in Geneva, of all places. So I'll read an email from him. The Institute of Economic Affairs endorses no particular party, but seeks to encourage politicians of all stripes to embrace and advance radical change. through robust policy ideas that lead to a transfer in power away from the state and into the hands of ordinary men and women. It is the role of the Institute of Economic Affairs to think the unthinkable and fight these battles. But of course, they're aware that political parties and elected politicians always need to be conscious of the art of the impossible. In this spirit, my colleagues and I have been delighted to work with the Indigo Group in crafting of their platform of policy and proposals and acknowledging the hard work that they have done. Therefore, the IEA have helped them with research material, and we look forward to seeing their success over the coming weeks, months and years ahead. So, Mark Littlewood and his team have been exceptionally helpful to us, but also Simon Richards from the Freedom Association as well. They've really helped challenge and critique, so where we put policies forward and said, well, how about this? What about this action? And so we've made this as robust as we can, but it's a white paper. We want this to evolve from the membership. It's not a top-down approach. As Roger said, it's a bottom-root, grassroots movement that needs member support. We want members to be on board with this. And the only way of doing that is spreading it through the branches, and that's where we, as Bill said, we really need the ambassadors to do that. So I got a call off Bill back in May saying, I've got a small project for you. Can you sort the country out? I was like, okay, so I started thinking about where are the biggest challenges, and the first area I looked at was education. And I think it runs right the way from primary right the way through to universities. There is a huge problem. There is an indoctrination, whether it be from the EU or that the state is the easiest way. The state has all the answers. We're going back in time almost. So one of our policy ideas, and we've borrowed this from Sweden, when they were going through the economic crash in 2008, they were running out of money. So they had to make huge budget cuts, and education had to have huge cuts of between 25%. So I thought, what is an alternative idea? What's a radical solution to this? We can't keep closing schools, because they have also a huge influx with immigration as well. What they did is they allowed for-profit schools, which are banned in the UK. Now, this will get a lot of challenge from the unions and those on the left of politics. However, what happened from 2008 to 2012, when they allowed schools, if they wanted to become independent and make a profit? And what happened is the scores of those from the most poorest backgrounds increased dramatically. Those from the rich backgrounds, it didn't affect their scores at all. So it was those that were the least successful and those from the poorest background that had the best rates. And there's a lot of research going there, and there's lots of links for you to look through in the Indigo Group. Another alternative idea that we've looked at, we fully agree with the points-based system based on the Australian system, but we want to take it one stage further and introduce an auction system. Because what we don't want is the big state choosing one degree from Chicago University is bigger than another. So in essence, an auction system where people can purchase them, so the free market decides the price of what the value of what our visas are worth in essence. So the state sets how many people do we need, whether it be in plumbing, electrician, whatever it may be. So it's not a closed border, it's a controlled border. But let's open it to the market to dictate what the price of those visas are. And America looked at it, and they looked at charging on average around £50,000 per visa, and the finances that would raise goes into to Whitehall to pay off some of our debt, which we desperately need. But to expand on that, to make it sure that someone from a poor background, let's say a brain surgeon in India, that may not be able to afford the upfront fee, we want to still ensure that they have the access to Britain. So similar to the student loans, we'd have a loan system that is paid off by a percentage of their salary. So in essence, the state and the British people still have control and the vetting process of who comes through our borders, but we can make further funding from it. Because at the state of our nation, the debt, if you include the state pension in, it is £3 trillion. and it is not being paid down. We've got a huge deficit. So we have a responsibility, not for ourselves, not for our children, but for our grandchildren, to pay this debt down as quickly as we possibly can. And the other parties are not addressing this. We're getting in a serious situation, and what I don't want is for the government and Whitehall to give up and say, oh, well, Europe will be our savior. Europe will just pile more and more debt on us. They're already doing it by regionalisation. You've seen Greater Manchester and the trouble that they've got in. They've taken on huge debts. Now, to the electorate, it was sold as grants. Well, in fact, they're EU debt. And the problem is councils are so desperate for money, they see the carrot from the European Union. Oh, you'll get infrastructure grants, you'll get this, you'll get that. Someone's going to pay for it, and it'll be the British taxpayer that's paying for it. And the West Midlands is going through this at the moment, a West Midlands Combined Authority. Well, in 1986, the Greater Birmingham office was established in Brussels. And it's only just coming through now. So since 1986 they've been planning this combined authority. And unfortunately the local people didn't get to vote. They did a survey of which the combined authority will represent nearly 3 million people, and they had 300 responses, predominantly councillors. And they said that's enough to give them the democratic right to push ahead with this huge project. So it's things like this, it's this big state, it's this control that we're trying to cut down, devolve it to local people. And that's where a lot of the ideas that run through this manifesto, be it, we want to scrap VAT, this really hurts small importers. If small businesses, they have to pay the VAT up front. That really affects their cash flow up front. Small changes, I mean, even if we can't push through with all of these policies, even if VAT could be removed from small businesses that import, it frees up their cash flow massively. There's small changes can make a huge difference, and we are